Hi, folks. Welcome to Sharp Talk, where cutting edge topics and sharp minds come together to have the edge. I'm Doug Marcaida. I'm known as a Kali martial artist and a judge on Fortune Fire. But with me today is Tomas Alas with the same cool background. Take it away, Tomas.
Thank you so much, Doug Marcaida, for that introduction. Welcome, everyone, to Sharp Talk, Episode 3. We're following up our conversation on Get a Grip. How are you holding your tools and how are you going to implement them? In this episode, specifically, we're going to be talking about the reverse grip. We're going to dispel some of the common movie myths that you might have seen on TV and popular movies, some of the effectiveness of the reverse grip, why you may want to consider it, and why it may not be advantageous for you and your system that you're studying. With that being said, let's cut into it.
Okay, so far we've talked about the different kinds of grips for Get a Grip. We have the overhand, meaning it's over the hand, edge in, edge out, where your finger placements, that's just a little bit thing, but it's pretty much over your hand or like a hammer grip. Then we have the modified overhand grip where it's about thrusting, edge in and edge out, where your fingers are and the way you're going to be pointing and holding it. It's about having it in a linear fashion for thrusting. And then, of course, now we go into the underhand. The underhand grip or the reverse grip or the ice pick grip when you're picking ice, as they call it in Filipino martial arts, is about holding the blade where it is under your hand. Now, why would you have this? Well, I talked about it earlier. When we're talking about the overhand grip up here, or especially when we're talking about the modified overhand grip, when it's thrusting, it's about keeping things and people away from you at a distance, right? Look at the distance I have from here. But the minute I go exclusively this way, I cut my distance for power slashes. But same thing is when I'm in this particular grip. It's not going to reach as well. I have to camp my arm differently to get to that point. So why would somebody carry this way? Well, the reason for that is because of power and control. If you think of the underhand as a claw of nature, then we think that anything that a claw will grab onto to control and use. So it's a powerful thing because when I'm using this, I'm using my back muscles to bring it into me. Whether it's edge in or edge out, that's not the point here. The point is it's about bringing something to you as opposed to pushing them away. Now, the natural feel for pushing away, we'll start off with the first one is edge out. Edge out allows that when I move my arms out, I lead with an edge underneath my arm. It's like a reverse claw where the edge is facing out. Still at an angle because at a close distance, this grip is really a close quarter kind of grip.
So we're talking about close quarter systems and utilizing some muscle structures to pull in your desired opponent. What are some key factors of the reverse grip?
Now we're talking about the grip, not necessarily the blade. So whether edge in or edge out, it's about the grip. The first one is if your blade does not have a guard or doesn't have a swell or a finger weld for retention, then you would put the thumb right above that grip. The closer you are, the more control you have. But of course, different lengths of different grips are going to dictate how you're going to be holding on to. Where's that finger weld and everything. But the thumb stop, popped up right there, right like a bottle cap, is what gives you the strength when you're puncturing into something or controlling it. It's allowing to make sure that when you hit something, the grip doesn't get up into your hand. This is especially true when we're using folders, for example, right? When you have a folder that doesn't have that. Well, this in particular has one. But once again, if I don't have that with a folder, I will use my thumb to make sure that stop is right there. Now, you know what else is another close quarter grip that's always used, or not always, mostly used underhand? The karambit. Underhand, naturally the fourth because it mimics the way you're going to be fighting. But what gives us its stop is not necessarily down here, but the index finger where you get the retention. But yet, when you're using this, the thumb also still, once again, gets on top for that extra stoppage that you have. Now, some blades actually have a skull crusher. You won't be putting your thumb on the skull crusher, right? But if you do have the guard, the thumb now would nicely just melt on top of your finger right there and get it out of the way when you're jabbing with it, when you're using the blade. The way you use the underhand grip basically is about thrusting because you're leading with a thrust, but also if you're swinging side to side, that would be your slashes when you're doing that. The thing about underhanded grips is the idea that I am using gravity for strength. because I'm cutting downward. I'm stabbing downward. So that use of my muscles coming downward gives me the power to jam and thrust in. It also pushing up, like push-ups, allow me leaning with the edge to cut anything that's above. Now, if some systems like the blade in, it's whatever I bring into me that's going to be cut. But at the same time, it takes training to be able to do that, because with the edge in, anything that comes into my being, you better know how to move that blade around so you don't get cut with your own blade, especially if you're also just thrusting. When you thrust down and you cut all the way through and miss something, guess what's in the path of your strike? You're cutting toward you with a blade, bringing in toward you with a blade. So really a lot of it's to keep at bay or know how to twist and control your blade all the time. That's a very important thing when you're working with these blades. So whether it's edge out to keep everything at bay as I'm cutting on the way in, or edge in, you still have to understand how the path of the blade moves so that you're always in control of the blade and not the blade control your motions.
So those are some of the advantages of it. You got the strength, you have the speed, and you have the quickness of it, but you have to be careful not to injure yourself. That's important. What are some of the disadvantages of the reverse grip?
One of the disadvantages or limitations of reverse grip is you can't stretch out very far with its strength. You know, when you're putting it out there, that's the way the blade is. It's underhand, as opposed to when you're trying to thrust this way, you can do the reverse. I have range with that. This one here, even the slight turn of the wrist starts to change the way I can move my hand to get that point still facing forward. So that's a disadvantage with range. Of course, I can make up range with moving, but we're talking about the distance of the blade from the blade to me and the blade to the opponent. With the modified overhand, you have the range to push something away and keep it at bay. On this grip, it's really about bringing them close to you. So can people use this? Absolutely, because no matter what, you still have to get inside my defense or avoid the tip of my blade. But at the same time, I sacrifice the distance from me and my opponent by simply moving. There are ways to actually move this simply by adjusting your movement. If I want to get full range of this, if I can show that, I have to cant it a certain way. Not going to work this way, but guess what? On the side here, I can reach further out that way. So once again, it's about taking what you have, knowing the strengths, and on the limitations, simply using body mechanics and footwork, you can actually bridge that distance. But this is more, once again, of a close quarter use of the blade.
For me, I agree. And it's like you don't really typically see chefs in a reverse grip dicing onions, right? So you lose a little bit of that fine motor skill. You know, if you can do that, that's a cool trick shot, but not for me.
Yeah, but let's say, for example, the blade that you have right there. Mm-hmm. Once the blade is longer than your hand, it starts to get longer than your hand in length. It starts to become blade heavy. The weight starts to go forward. When it starts to go forward, the point of percussion is in front of you. Now, if I were, for example, I'll take a blade here, start putting on the reverse grip, a large blade, right? I can even feel that the weight of the blade right here, that the blade is starting to control me. The weight is not on my hand. So now this is really controlling me. This is the reason why I can chop a tree down this way. I'm not going to be able to chop a tree this way. So what is the difference between underhand over overhand? Obviously, power. Because I can get gravity cutting down just as much as I have gravity stabbing down. But I cannot laterally get as much power as I can with the blade, because once again, when it's overhand, the weight is forward. This one, I have no control on anything that's coming back with that. And then again, fine motor skills. I can control a blade working chef work this way, or with my chef knife here. You're cutting down there. I can control fine motor skills when I'm carving blades and stuff like that. Not so much this way. You don't see people actually carve intricate patterns with the hand this way, right? And the reason for that is I don't have as much control of the blade or fine motor skills doing that way. That's why when you're paring an apple, you have the blade over the hand when you're paring, and not paring an apple with the blade underhand. It's just a different thing. It's too close to your body. You cannot see what you're doing. Your fine motor skills are not as developed that way.
Exactly. And there are some instances, though, where that reverse grip would come in handy. And we talked a little bit about it on the karambit, about where it comes as a farming tool, right? So you are using it as that scythe motion, you're raking. But the other really important one that I think kind of dispels a lot of myths, because when people see this, they go, oh, that's just some weird knife guy. No, it does have some actual purpose, because if you look at people breaking down in butchery and in farming and processing meat, they're breaking it down like this to split it open. Why? Because like you said, you're using your muscles, you're using your weight of your body in order to get your cut in. So in a self-defense application, I think that comes in extremely, extremely useful, but not so much for wood carving a spoon in bushcraft or camping,
Yeah,
right?
because even this down here, when you see them carving down here, they're talking about power,
Mhm.
not fine cutting skills. When that, if you really want to get something in there, you start to cut this way. It's the same idea as I can ice pick this thing down, right? Get a screwdriver. You have a very tiny screw head. Which way do you do it? Do it this way, because you're very limited in your motions this way, as you would if you put the screwdriver, and you can do it this way in full control. So it's a matter of how our bodies are designed. We hold the blades differently because of what we want to do with it. But once again, what is it designed for? These grips like this with bigger weapons, I mean, they look great for movies, but then I cheat myself with a long way of distancing, right? Power and distance. I have more power and I have more distance with the overhand grip with a blade held that way.
Question. What about disarms? Because I feel that if you're holding it in reverse grip and the edge is out, you're a little bit more prone to being disarmed versus here you can like twist out quicker. What are your thoughts on obviously never disarm a
Absolutely.
blade, but what are your thoughts on disarming leverage?
And the idea that you're talking about, let's say I'll use this one here, is definitely because what we're trying to do with this particular thing is use the leverage of the blade. In our martial arts system, what we do, Filipino martial arts, right? We actually have the idea of being able to come out here and then using this on somebody's arm. Let's see if I can put it on this hand. We have a block where I can actually use this to as leverage to be disarmed, right? Is that as a disadvantage? Depends on the knife user, right? For us, we're always taught, if I feel anything get over here, if I feel any kind of resistance here, I go underneath it and continue the cut. Yeah, as opposed to if you're trying to leverage, I don't. I can also, with a different thing, just flip the blade and then cut. It's that easy. One of the things people realize, edge in, edge out, doesn't really matter if you know how to flick. And all of this is this. Boop. So watch.
Wait, how you do that?
I'm going to capture something right here, right? So I'm starting with edge out.
Okay.
Edge out, as I'm going to deliver a, well, let's see if I put on the camera here. So you see the edges out, right? Watch. Is it out or in? Oh, edge out, edge in, anything's in there. Okay, good. Is it out or in? It's a simple twist, simple twist, simple twist. I may start out here, same thing with this blade, right? It's because we train with that. I start out here with edge out. For some reason, I need reverse edge. Really? Okay, there's my reverse edge. Simple as that, right? So in the training, you can modify things to make it work for you. But that's why we have all these finger dexterity drills that we do, because that teaches me how I'm going to be able to flip and use the blade. People go, I'm a fidget guy and everything else. It's also finger dexterity to be able to know how to use the blade, whether in or out. Karambit doesn't always have to be here for any reason. Oh, well, what about getting the finger? Really, it's out right now. And oh, it's on this grip now. Or is it in grip, or is it once again a reverse grip? Really? I think it's a reverse grip right now in motion, because we train to do that. We train to be able to know how to flip and how to move and how to actually flip the weapon. At the same time, exchange it where it's a right hand, left hand. Same idea here, right? Right hand, right, left, right, or left.
I love it. I mean, people see it online just like you. I fidget all the time with my blades, but I think it has a practical purpose. Obviously, get a trainer if possible, or tape the blade up, pro tip. But you're getting a feel for the weight and the balance and that energy transfer of being able to manipulate it. And I always tell folks this because they see it, they're like, why are you flipping your blades? I go, have you ever like went to reach for your cell phone and then like it starts sliding and you catch it in an awkward position? Well, same if you go to deploy your knife, right? And you get bumped or something, or it gets caught in clothing. I can now switch it quick and get to a different position of advantage, or simply just use it in that manner. And it's just second nature. I go into it and then flip.
The key is second nature. Now, knowing it's a blade, you have to respect the weapon no matter what. The thing about training with live blades is it will not lie. You're going to have a lot of paper cuts and Band-Aids everywhere. So you have to be more careful with that. So I remember when you go, I'm going to get cut. Good. What do you mean I'm going to get good? Good, because you learn a lesson and you learn to respect the weapon and you learn how to manipulate the weapon without getting cut. but you need to get cut first. I'm like, wow, interesting. And you do that. You go, oh, I got cut. And it's not the end of the world, right? But you do learn all these finger dexterity things for whatever reason we're talking about. Plus, here's the thing. It's a lot of fun. When you're playing with your weapon over and over, guess what you're doing? You're actually with your weapon. Now, I say play in a lighthearted way. It's really training. It's me being very personal with something here that I'm going to be using, but so personal that I respect it. I know that to play around with it, I can get cut, but I'm also constantly working with it because I don't want to be caught with this fumbling and cut myself left and right. And it is part of training. It is part of respect and knowing where your edge is. It always knows where the edge is at all time. Where's the tip? Where's your guard? How's the feel? It's not about just switching, especially in combat. It goes, just a switch or you drop your weapon. But it's also in the idea that maybe I'm not the one wielding the weapon. The opponent is the one, and we get to a situation where I grab his weapon from his point of view, and then I have the weapon. I know how to be able to adjust it to make sure that the weapon coming on to me is now mine, and I can adjust to that, even though it's coming to me at a different angle. So those are the things that we do. But that's also part of martial arts training. Training the different tools that you have, which are knives in our case, and learning how to use it from different points of view. Carefully, because if not, it's going to let you know.
It's going to let you know real quick. With that being said, you touched on it a little bit with regards to the dagger, with regards to like a chef's knife or even the karambit. Sometimes there may be limitations on how you can grip it. For example, the karambit is only really going to be edge forward. It's kind of awkward to do it edge in, although I guess you could if you had to. So pay close attention and get comfortable with the tools that you're carrying, because you don't want to be trying to grip it in an awkward way and then you end up injuring yourself.
Yeah. Definitely. You know, knowing how to work with different tools and different configurations, you start to realize also that there are other parts of your hand that manipulate the blade. You have, for this case, everybody thinks that's just a karambit flip, right? Well, there's an assist that goes on. My thumb actually helps come inside to throw it over. So it comes around to throw the flip. It throws that for the finger dexterity of being able to control that. Well, the thumb's involved. What about a particular thing? The thumb is also involved because it allows me to spin it. If I need to go from forward edge or edge in, this is kind of like, but edge in to edge out or edge in to edge out, So there are other digits there. Just like when you're training with a blade, there are other parts of my being that will also work with making this happen as I'm doing it. It's not just this. Sometimes it's with the left to the right, to the elbow, to the left to the right, to the elbow, to the left to the right, back to the left, back to the right. Other parts of you that are also working in conjunction with this. But that's a martial art way of when you train weapons. And Filipino martial arts loves knives.
Indeed. And make sure you stay tuned for future episodes where we'll go into detail about how you can manipulate your blade and a variety of other tips and tricks.
Well, guys, that was another great episode of Sharp Talk. With me was Tomas from Tactical Tavern. I'm Doug Marcaida, and
make sure to drop a like, share this with a friend who's interested in learning more, and subscribe so you won't miss future videos coming at you.
Stay sharp.
Oh.